Hello and welcome to Riverside Tech. Today we have a review of the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is the successor of the Wii U, and it's a new gaming console from Nintendo. After the rather poor sales of the Wii U compared to the original Wii, Nintendo are hoping that the Switch will be their new big seller. The main difference with the Switch compared to something like the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One is that it can be a home console and a handheld device. You can have the console attached to your TV in its dock, and then when you want to go somewhere else, you can just attach the Joy-Cons and slide the Switch out of the dock, allowing you to instantly take your games with you wherever you want to go. First, let's look at the build quality of the device. While the Wii U's gamepad was large and felt pretty cheap and plastic, the Switch, while also plastic, feels much more premium. The plastic is solid. This is also contributed with the weight of the device, which, while noticeable, is not overbearing, but the weight helps the device feel more like a substantial piece of kit rather than a toy. I also like the way the plastics used are matte rather than shiny, and they don't get as dirty as easy, and they also have a nice finish which feels good on the hand. On the front of the device is the display, which I found had great colours and games look great on it, even better sometimes than they did on my TV, which I'll talk about later. At the bottom of the display are two small front-facing speakers, which I absolutely love to have on the device, because while they're not that powerful, you can hear them just fine no matter what the volume they're turned up to, because they're on the front of the device. This is so much better than having them on the back of the device, like in a smartphone, because they're actually pointing towards you, towards your ears, so you can actually hear it much easier. The top of the device has an on-off power button and a volume slider, a fan vent, an audio jack, and a slot for the game cartridges, which the device uses to run games if you don't want to download them off the internet. The back of the device has space for a fan intake, and also a kickstand to support the device when you want to use it in tabletop mode and remove the Joy-Cons and have them separately. Underneath that kickstand is a micro SD card slot for expandable storage. The Switch only comes with 32GB standard, so if you want to install many digital downloaded games onto your device, an SD card is probably going to have to be purchased for this, and you can get any up into 2TB, and 2TB is even made at the moment. They're not overly expensive, so it's a recommended thing to have for your Switch if you want to be downloading games. The bottom of the device has a USB-C slot for charging and also docking the device into the included Switch dock to run it on your television. On either side of the device are two rails which allow the Joy-Cons to be slotted into place in order to change the Switch from docked mode to handheld mode. The Switch comes included with two Joy-Cons, mine with the neon red and neon blue ones, but you can also get the black version of the Joy-Cons. They feel great when attached to the Switch in portable mode, and I also enjoyed using them in the included Joy-Con grip, which is kind of a grip to put the Joy-Cons in. And I enjoyed also even having them free from anything and holding them individually in each hand. I could put my arms anywhere, I could put them over my head, behind my back. It just felt great, really. I enjoyed having the freedom to completely choose my playstyle, which I haven't really had with many other consoles. I feel like this is something that the Switch does really well. You can choose how you want to play, as a console for a serious gaming session, or handheld if you want to move about, or even anywhere in between. It's completely up to you what you want to do, and I absolutely love that fact. After using the Switch, going back to a normal console like an Xbox, and just being forced to use that controller doesn't feel as nice anymore. I like being able to choose what I want to do. The Joy-Cons are an amazing piece of kit. They have so many functionalities. They've got vibration motors in them, they've got infrared sensors, they've got gyroscopes. You can use them as individual remotes for some multiplayer games, which I do like, even though they are quite small when you're using an individual Joy-Con remote in both hands. And my one big issue with them is I do feel that Nintendo did sacrifice some usability from the controllers in order to make using them as two individual controllers a function. This is because the control sticks on the Joy-Cons are at different angles from each other. That's to have them in the same place when you're using them as individual controllers. And this causes issues when you have the two controllers together using it as one controller, as the right Joy-Con is lower than the left Joy-Con, and it's so low that when you're holding the device you have to kind of move your hand down. It makes it actually hard to press the buttons above that, and it can feel pretty weird to begin with, although I did eventually get used to it. Now let's talk about performance. The two main games I played on the Switch are Zelda Breath of the Wild and Snipperclips, and I also played a little bit of 1-2 Switch. I found Zelda worked amazingly well on the device. When playing the game, I did notice some slowdown when there was extremely dense foliage on the screen, but often the frame rate would get back up to speed extremely quickly. And overall, it didn't really detract from my experience that much, because it didn't happen during a fight scene or anything like that. I am willing to allow some frame rate issues. One, because it's a new device, and people and developers haven't maybe had the best knowledge at getting full performance out of it just yet. And two, because it's also a handheld device, and to get a game as large and full-featured as Zelda on the device, I can sacrifice some, I can deal with some slight issues to have something like Zelda, and as large as Zelda on the device. However, talking about Zelda's performance issues, I did notice slightly more performance issues from Zelda when I was playing on the television rather than the handheld. I think this was probably because the game was being rendered at a higher resolution when I had it plugged into the TV in order to export to it, and the device was having to work harder and possibly lacking the power to render that high resolution for such a demanding game. While the drops didn't happen often, again, they did happen more regularly than when I was using it in handheld mode, and I found that Zelda especially looked really crisp on the handheld screen because it was running natively at 720p resolution rather than being upscaled from 900p to 1080p. During my testing, the battery life was kind of a mixed bag. When playing Zelda, the battery only lasted a bit longer than 2 hours, but it lasted much longer when I was playing something like Snipper Clips. When more games are released, it may be possible to see which games the average is closer to, what the average is more closer to, although I would recommend bringing a large battery bank with you if you are taking the device with you on a long trip, just to make sure you can play the device as long as you want to. And that comes to my issue with the Switch at the moment. While the hardware appears to be great, and the build quality and the docking and undocking feature are amazing, there's only really a few games on it right now. While Zelda might keep most Switch buyers interested for a long time to come, the Switch is going to need way more killer games going forward in order to become one of the best game consoles of the last few years, and only time will let us know that answer. Stay tuned for more videos on the Switch, coming from Riverside Tech. Please like and subscribe. Goodbye.